Chess YouTube, in this video, I'm going to show you step by step, literally everything that I personally did to reach an online chess rating of 2000 ELO on chess.com and become a top 1% online player. Now, how did I do this? How did I reach the incredible goal of 2000 ELO? And also, who the heck am I? My name is Dr. Mike Jansen. I'm an online chess player. And from, August 2024 to March 2025, I gained 900 ELO points. That's right, I gained 900 ELO points in just 7 months from August 2024 to March 2025. It's all documented on chess.com. My real username there is drmikechess1, as you can see down below right here. So how did I do this? Well, to show you how I accomplished this insane goal, I'm going to break down one of the latest training games I played versus one of my students. So I have this online chess community called school.com/chessmindset. The link is right up there, right there. I also have it down below in the description and the pinned comment. So I'm playing this training game versus my student. He's a very strong Indian player, rated about 1500 in rapid. So let's see how this game goes. And during the game, I'll break down everything I did to reach 2000 ELO. So in the game, I opened 1d4, black goes d5, and then I go c4. Now, the first thing I did to reach 2000 ELO, I mastered my chess openings. Now, so many people, they approach openings the wrong way. So many people, they either don't study openings at all, they just wing it in the opening, they play whatever they feel like, or on the other hand, they memorize endless variations and lines and ideas without really understanding why they're playing the moves they play. And the problem with that is, sooner or later in a chess game, the opponent is going to play a move that you did not expect, a move that you have not seen before and have not studied before. And I actually faced one of those moves very early in this game. And when you study endless lines and variations without understanding the ideas behind the moves, then as soon as the opponent deviates from your opening theory, you feel lost, you feel confused, and you end up making a big mistake. So the first thing is you must master your openings, but most importantly, you must understand why you are playing the moves you played. Now, I have personally mastered to some degree for a 2000 player, not a GM level master, but to some degree, I've mastered the Queen's Gambit for white. This is my bread and butter right now for white. I can play other openings. I can play 1e4 if I have to, but this really is my bread and butter in online chess. In the game, black goes e6. The Queen's Gambit declined. A very, very solid defensive setup. One of the best ways for black to play versus the Queen's Gambit. I continue. Knight c3. Black goes knight f6. And white can do a lot of things here. He can trade on d5. He can go bishop g5. But in this game, I trade on d5 and go for the bishop g5 follow-up like this. This is known as the exchange variation of the QGD. Now, from here, both sides have a lot of different ideas, but the most important thing in your openings, as I said, is to understand the ideas behind the opening. So let's use this position right here as an example. What are the ideas here? What should white know? What is white trying to accomplish? Well, this is called the Carlsbad pawn structure. Right here, white is missing the c pawn and black is missing the e pawn. So white's idea at some point is to bring the bishop outside the pawn chain, usually to g5, and then go e3. And from there, white will castle on the king side or on the queen side. Now, castling king side here is a little bit stronger, but both ideas are playable. From here, white will likely go bishop d3 and queen c2, and then either castle queen side, or he'll go for something like knight g to e2, then castle king side, and then go f3, intending a fast e4 break. Let's say black wastes some moves. Here's white's basic idea. e3, then bishop d3, then queen c2, and then either castling long, or the stronger idea would be knight g to e2, intending castles, and then eventually f3, intending a fast e4, and if he can get away with it, a fast e5 break. So when I say understanding openings, I mean if the opponent literally did not make any moves, would you know what you are trying to accomplish? Would you know where your pieces are trying to go? So if you understand this kind of setup where white's pieces go to these squares, the idea is e4, e5, the king may go to h1, the rook may go to, say, d1. If you know these kinds of ideas, you will be so much better off in whatever opening you play. And when the opponent plays a weird series of moves, like, for example, knight a6 to b8 to a6 to b8, you will know what you are doing. It's one of the first things I teach all of my coaching students is understand what you are doing in the opening, understand where you develop the pieces, and so on. Let's go back to the actual game. So, bishop g5 played in the game. Now, black, what should black be doing? As black here in this opening, typically, first of all, there's a lot of pressure on that pawn on d5. White here has this knight pinned, therefore black has to defend d5 quickly. So, typically he'll go c6, or bishop e7, or knight b d7. All of these indirectly, in some capacity, defend the d5 pawn. From there, black's going to castle, maybe go c6 and knight b d7. And from there, try to find some form of counterplay either on the king side or maybe on the queen side with plans like b5, a5, and so on. So black has a lot of ideas, but it's important to understand also for your opponent what your opponent is trying to accomplish and what his typical moves and ideas are. Now, from here, black plays the move h6. And I'm going to be honest, in the game, this was a big mistake. I did not punish this move. The right move here is taking on f6. I'll explain why in just a little bit. Instead, I go back, and the opponent plays this move, bishop to f5. Now, at this point, look at the timer down below. I have 10 minutes for the entire game, and on this move, I spent nearly 2 minutes. Almost 2 minutes on one move on move 7. Why did I do this? Why would a 2,000 ELO player spend literally 2 minutes on one move trying to make a decision? Well, in this position, black played a move I have never seen. I have never seen black play this move this fast. It's just not supposed to be a good idea. Now, black can go, for example, c6 and then bishop f5. And from there, the idea by white is either queen to f3 or knight g to e2, both of which are pretty good for white. But I've never seen this move, bishop f5, this early in the game. So I spend literally 2 minutes trying to find the right idea. And I was debating, do I take on f6 or do I go queen to b3? Now, this is the next thing I did. Well, first of all, it's still sort of the opening lessons. So in the opening, when the opponent plays a move you did not expect, do not panic. The most important thing is to rely on your general understanding of that opening. If you have a general understanding already, it will make finding the right plans and ideas so much easier for white. So here, I've got this pressure on the knight on f6. And I know black typically goes bishop e7 or c6 to defend d5. So the first thing I'm thinking is, wait a minute. I know black has to defend d5 somehow, and he didn't defend d5. So what am I missing? Do I take here? Do I take here? Do I go queen b3, pressuring d5 and b7? All of these moves are instantly going into my head, and I'm trying to find the right idea. And here I saw, at the very least, if I take on f6, black has a very difficult choice. If he takes back with the pawn, his pawn structure is ruined. On the other hand, if he takes with the queen, the pawn on d5 falls. So I thought, you know what? No matter what, this move has to be good. It has to be good for me. So I play it in the game. I take on f6. Black takes back with the g pawn. And from here, I just go knight f3. And from here, it's only move 8. I've already got a massive, and I mean massive, edge out of the opening. Black's pawns on f6 and f7 are completely ruined. And don't get me wrong, my understanding of the opening at this point is basically over. I'm basically relying on general chess principles now, but because I understood the opening and the ideas behind the opening, I could find this move taking on f6 and getting a huge edge. And from here, I still have a decent understanding of how to play. So opening knowledge is so important, but you have to learn openings the right way. You have to understand the ideas behind the opening, because that is the only way to truly know what you're doing, especially when the opponent deviates from your opening theory that you've already learned. Now, the second thing I did to become a top 1% online player, I had to learn how to think during a chess game. And that means having the right mental thought processes on every single move applied over and over and over, just consistently on a subconscious level, or conscious, but just automatic level, like a machine. And I've tried a lot of different thought processes starting in August 2024 when I made my insane progress. And the one I found to be most beneficial for me personally, and most of my students absolutely love this one too. And by the way, I've never seen anyone else teach this way. The right thought process in the opening and early middle game, and even the mid-middle game phase of the game, is attack or develop. I'll say it again. Either attack or develop. Now, what does that mean? It means in most positions, if the opponent is not immediately attacking you, you have two main options. You can either, one, attack the opponent, find something to attack, something to capture, something to threaten, or you can develop. You can bring out another piece and castle and so on. So let's say black here wants to use the attack or develop kind of mental model. What could he attack? Well, the only attacking ideas I see include perhaps knight c6 pressuring d4. That does not look very strong. Bishop b4 attacking the knight. That does not look very strong either. And finally, c5. That looks super risky as it loosens the pawn on the d5 square. So black here doesn't really have any good attacking ideas. Therefore, he should be developing. Now, what is the best way to develop? Well, it depends. Where does black want to castle? If he's trying to castle kingside, he might want to go bishop to, say, e7 or d6. Now, unfortunately for black, castling kingside is not really the best idea. Honestly, he might want to keep his king in the center of the board for right now, but still, the idea remains the same. Maybe he wants to go bishop to e6 and bishop d6 and knight d7 and queen e7, just kind of bringing those pieces out to the center. So that might be black's idea. In the game, black does go knight c6, pressuring d4. Not the best idea in the world. And now here, attack or develop. Using the same mental model, what do I want to do here? Well, first of all, what could I attack? The only thing I see right now is perhaps knight to h4, attacking the bishop, but I don't think that is the right way to go here. I can also go queen to b3, pressuring d5 and b7, and that actually looks pretty attractive to me. And during the game, I spent a lot of time trying to say, is this the right way to go? If I didn't play this, I would develop. In that case, I would go to probably e3, intending bishop to, say, e2 or d3 and castles. But I do have this attacking idea of queen b3. And if there is a good reason to attack, I try to attack. If there's not, I try to castle. That's how you use the attack or develop rule. So here I say, you know what? This looks really strong. I'm going to go queen b3, pressuring d5, pressuring b7. Now, in addition to the attack or develop rule, you also have to consider the opponent's idea. And here my opponent does that marvelously. Every time the opponent plays a move, you have to ask yourself, what is the opponent's threat? What is their idea? You especially have to do this when the opponent plays an aggressive move like queen b3. If I played e3, the idea is obvious, bishop to e2 or d3 or b5. However, if I go queen to b3, now you have to identify that while he's trying to attack b7 or d5, if you don't identify the threat, it's impossible to find the right response. And black here finds a really strong idea. Queen to d6. Now, what's the idea? It's very simple. If I take on b7, black is going to go rook b8. And from there, he has the discovered attack, sort of, or the x-ray attack, or the skewer on that pawn on b2. So, for example, queen takes, rook b8, queen to a6, rook takes b2, and black is suddenly winning a pawn on the queen side. And, you know, black's got a great game, and I'm in trouble. So I did not consider queen takes b7 at all. I knew that would be fantastic for black. And that brings me to the third point I want to make in this video about how to reach 2000 ELO as fast as possible. You do have to play a lot of online games to get better. Chess is a game. You have to play the game to get better at it. However, it is unbelievably important to analyze your games afterwards with an engine, either using the Chess.com game analysis feature or actually using Stockfish on Chess.com or on Lichess after you play your games, and actually going move by move with Stockfish, trying to find where you went wrong, and when you went wrong, what Stockfish says you should play instead. And here, I've analyzed so many of my own games where I take on b7 in the Queen's Gambit, where black goes rook b8 like this. I go back, and black takes on b2, and suddenly black gets a massive advantage. For example, watch the eval bar here. If I take on b7, the eval bar completely swings in black's favor. He takes on b2, and black here actually has a big edge. And I've analyzed a lot of my own games where I try that, and it didn't work out. And I knew instinctively that in this position, that was not the right idea. Now, sometimes it does work, but I knew instinctively from my previous analysis of my other games on Chess.com that this was not the right way to go. So, when you study games with the engine afterwards, you sort of improve your pattern recognition and you learn when it's a good idea to capture something, when it's not. And you basically don't have to repeat the same mistakes over and over in your own games. Now, from here, okay, I'm not taking on b7. That much is clear. What about d5? That was the entire idea behind queen b3. That's the entire reason I played that in the first place. I wanted to capture on d5 or b7. And here I have the free chance to capture on d5. Now, this is a good time for a puzzle. If you like puzzles, try to figure out, is it a good idea or a bad idea for me to trade on d5? In the game, I actually did capture on d5 with the queen. I thought this was a guaranteed way to win a pawn, have the better pawn structure, and get a completely winning game. And that is true unless black finds the right response here. And I did not see this during the game at all. At all. Even when I captured, I didn't see it. Black here can capture on d5. If I take back, black can castle long, pressuring the knight. And if I go back, black just takes, and black, funnily enough, despite having the ruined pawn structure, black is actually better. His king is safer. He has those two Bs on f5 and f8, and black here has a better game. It's absolutely shocking, and I missed it. And that brings me to my third point, or maybe fourth point. The fourth thing I did was studying tactics. Tactics are so important. You have to study tactics, and the simplest way is to study them on chess.com or leadchess.org, or if you prefer, something like chesstempo.com. Chesstempo is also fantastic. And one of the big questions I get is it important to study like complicated tactical ideas or simple ones? And in my experience, most players, myself included, below 2,000 ELO or even above 2,000 ELO, they mostly win or lose games due to simple tactical combinations. So in my opinion, it is far more important to study a large volume of very simple 1 or 2 or 3 move combinations, and don't worry about the complicated 5, 10 move lines. It's all about getting a large volume of simple tactical puzzles in to improve your overall pattern recognition. So far we covered openings, understanding the ideas of your openings. We've covered the thought process, the attack or develop, CCTO, which I like in more complicated positions, also considering the opponent's threat, and even things like blunder checks before or after every move, or before you make a move, always checking, does this blunder a piece? And finally, tactics. So far we've covered opening prep, the importance of understanding the ideas behind the openings. We've covered the thought process during the game, having the right mental thought process of attack or develop, CCTO, blunder checks, considering the opponent's threat. We've covered the importance of studying a large volume of simple tactical ideas to find ideas like this here, which if black took on d5, that would have been excellent for him. And finally, we've also covered the importance of analyzing your own games after you play them so you can learn and recognize more ideas like this right here, where I knew instinctively immediately during the game that taking on b7 was not a good idea, because I've analyzed so many positions just like this where black gets a huge edge, and I knew immediately that was not the right idea. So those 4 things will help you win so many games: opening prep, analyzing your games, tactics, and having the right mental thought process. And in my opinion, almost everything else, studying end games, studying grandmaster games, studying this and that, almost everything else is just so much less important for an improving player. Now let's continue. In the game, I take on d5, and black goes bishop to e6. Now, when I saw this move right here, I was like, oh boy, here we go. I spot the simple idea of taking on d6 and then d5, and I play it almost instantly. I take on d6, black takes back, and then d5. This is everything I want. I'm forking the bishop and the knight, but of course, things are not that simple, and black here finds the strong counter blow, knight b4. Hats off to my opponent. This was the only move to stay in the game. Now, here's a really important position. In this position, what should I be doing? Technically, according to the engine, I can take on e6. Black gives the check. I slide over. Black takes the rook. I give the check. Like, things are really, really complicated. Technically, that's the best move. Technically, why it's winning, but I did not like it during the game. I thought, you know what? I'm already way ahead. I'm already up a pawn. I have the better pawn structure, if I can just find a simple way to consolidate and get like a stable position, I should be completely winning no matter what. So I was trying to find a simple way to consolidate and give me a guaranteed win and avoid this long, complicated line. And I found the move long castles. And I was quite happy with this move during the game. And it is one of the top engine lines. The idea is simple. The king defends c2, and the rook defends d5. Therefore, black cannot take on d5. Black cannot jump into c2. And overall, I do seem to be consolidating. Now, the one problem with this move is in some lines, if black were to say, cut off my king like this, that could be dangerous. Now, fortunately, I can always go e4 if he does that. Therefore, long castles to me during the game seemed like a pretty good idea. From here, bishop d7. Now, from here, let's use the attack or develop rule. Despite being the end game, we still have not finished development. Our bishop and our rook are still not in the game. Therefore, my biggest priority overall is getting these two pieces into the game as quickly as I can. Now, using the attack or develop rule, what could I attack here? Well, the only thing I can attack really is that knight with the move a3. And I thought, you know what? That actually looks pretty strong. I don't like this knight on b4. I don't like that attacking a2 and d5. I said, you know what? Let's push it back. It goes back. And here I could develop. I could go, say, e3, bishop d3, rook h to e1. But I spend a tempo blocking the knight, sort of attacking c5, and I play the move b4. And my idea is simple. Black here has nothing. There's nothing he can do actively. So I spend a tempo blocking c5, stopping knight c5 ideas, and now black's knight is stuck on the edge of the board for a very, very long time. Now, from here, my plan is simple. I want to go, for example, e3, g3, bishop to, say, e2 or d3, maybe knight d4, h4. I've got this kind of long-term plan to slowly improve. And what can black do to stop me? Let's see. Castles, e3, f5. After the game, my opponent said f5 was done with the idea of stopping knight d4. So a decent idea. And beyond that, black's also sort of threatening f4 in some lines. Now, f4 is not the most dangerous idea ever. However, I didn't want to allow it. Therefore, I simply went g3, guarding f4 immediately. And g3 is part of my long-term plan. After all, black later may want to go rook g8, pressuring g2, and now it is defended in advance. And sure enough, black does go rook hg8. Now here, I'm not really sure what to do here, if I'm being totally honest. I'm ahead. I've got a big edge. I'm up one pawn. I've got a better pawn structure. My knights are fantastic. But how do I continue? I don't really know immediately. So with that in mind, I simply go king b2, kind of a waiting move, kind of improving my king, getting into a better square off the back rank, and letting black decide, as I don't think black has a whole lot of active ideas. In the game, black goes rook g4, and with this move, I thought he might be threatening b4 in some lines. Maybe he wants to sack the knight and then take with the rook, and maybe he can find something. I didn't want to allow that. Therefore, here I simply go knight d4, blocking the rook, attacking f5, improving my knight, and so on, and also opening up the idea of bishop e2. So staying in complete control. Black here goes c5. Now, this is a massive blunder. See if you can find why c5 is a huge blunder. And as I said, even at 1500 or 2000 ELO, most of these games are decided sooner or later by tactical mistakes. And this is certainly a tactical mistake right here. The problem with this move, it's simple. I take on c6 almost immediately. And black here, he's losing the knight. If he takes with the pawn here, the knight falls. If he takes with the bishop, I take again, and then the knight falls. Black here literally losing a piece on the spot to a simple tactical combination. So after the game, I told my opponents, in this kind of position, after every single move, or actually before you play the move, you simply have to do a blunder check. Could this move lose a piece? And if you ask yourself that question every single time, you'll see, oh, wait a minute, yes, it can. I can capture en passant, and from there, the knight is going to fall. So you always have to ask yourself, would this blunder a piece if I play the move? Sort of a anti-blunder blunder check before every single move. So I win the piece, and from here, you would think the game would be super easy for me. I'm up a piece, I'm up a pawn, I have a better pawn structure, but in reality, it was not an easy win. I go back, e2, hit the rook, rook g8. And from here, I'm not really sure how to proceed. Maybe I want to double rooks. Maybe I want to push the pawns. Instead, I go bishop f3, pressuring c6, developing, and trying to improve my pieces. Black, rook b8. Now I go rook d2. The idea being rook hd1. And to be honest, I missed black's idea. I did not ask myself, what is my opponent's idea? And I got punished a little bit here. Black, in this position, he plays the move a5. And this move is super, super strong, capitalizing on the pin on the king on the b2 square. Or sorry, the pawn is pinned to the king on b2. I can't take, as then my king is just completely exposed. That is just not okay. You can't allow that. So when my opponent played rook b8 here, I completely missed his idea. I did not ask myself, what is my opponent's idea? I made a mistake. I'm human. It happens. Black's idea obviously is a5, and I simply ignore it. I go rook d2. And from here, I'm sort of losing a pawn. And this really annoyed me in the game. a5 really annoyed me. I was really mad that I missed the idea, but the show must go on. King c2. I slide off the b file, which I thought was good. Black takes twice. And then here, I don't want black to get some sort of counterplay on the queen side. I don't want him going like, you know, rook b8 and rook b2 and so on. That looks dangerous. So here I simply go rook b1. Finally bringing out my last piece into the game on move 28. From here, black can take on b1, but if he does that, more pieces come off the board, and as more and more pieces fall, my extra knight becomes that much more valuable. Therefore, black here, he sort of has to keep the piece alive. He goes rook c4, and here again, I didn't like this. Black is pressuring my knight. Maybe he's trying to go bishop e5 or b4 and pressure there and win the piece. And I did not like this one bit. So I tried to find a way to unwind where I would be safe no matter what. I begin king d3, attacking the rook. The rook, it goes back, rook c5. Now here, I wanted this knight out of the way. I thought about knight e2, but the problem with that, at least in my opinion, is the king, it's sort of trapped here. Black might go rook to, say, d8 and then threaten like some other weird ideas. And I didn't like this. So instead, I played the move here, knight to d1. Kind of a Magnus Carlsen style move. Magnus being a huge fan of moving pieces back to the back rank in a lot of his games, funnily enough. And my idea is the king is going to e2, at which point the king is just completely safe. There's nothing that black can do to threaten the king, and I should be winning from there. So when you're ahead, always trying to find the simplest, most straightforward, least complicated path to victory. Don't complicate things. There are no style points for winning with flashy style. Just find a way to win. So knight d1, rook d8, king e2, getting off the d file, rook a5, rook b2, threatening rook b7. I'm finally fighting back in the game, finally getting counterplay. Black, rook a7, defending. I go rook c2, attacking. So here in the endgame, every piece here is sort of developed. Therefore, the attack or develop rule doesn't really hold as much weight. It's more about attacking. And if you can attack, it's more about finding a way to improve your pieces. So here, I'm sharking around, trying to find some way to attack. Black, guarding b7. I go rook c2. Now, is this the best move on the board? I don't know. Maybe, perhaps. But the idea is I'm pressuring c6. Black might make a mistake. Yes, he can guard that pawn, but I'm sort of forcing out some defensive ideas from black. I have the initiative. And here black does make a mistake. He plays the move rook to c8. And at this point, I saw the guaranteed path to victory. I take on c6. The king moves. I take on c8. And from there, it just seems so obvious I'd be winning. So I take on c6. The king slides over. I take on c8. The king takes. And then rook c1 hits the king, knight c3, and the race to finish the game has begun. I only have 45 seconds left. Technically, I could still lose the game if I'm not careful. Black, rook c7, king d2, bishop b4, sliding down, pinning that knight to the king d3. The king march begins. I'm trying to bring my king over to the center of the board, ideally somewhere like e5 or even f6 if I can get it there. king c8, rook c2, king d8, knight d5. I loved this move here. I'm trying to simplify. I'm trying to get more pieces off the board. And with knight d5, I attack the rook. I attack the bishop. Things are flying off. If black takes, I take back. And we're heading to a completely winning endgame. The rooks fly off the board. Now it's the knight and the bishop versus the bishop. That is just too much. The king march continues. We're both in time pressure, both trying to find some way to play this game to finish it off. But in the end, there's just too much material. I slide back. I take the pawn. I push the pawn. I jump up with the king sooner or later, I think. Maybe. Here we go. The king marches up. I take the pawn. I'm going to win h6. And here, black simply resigns. There's no defense. There's too many pawns. Actually, he doesn't resign. Black here runs out of time. Indian players, I'm telling you, they never, ever resign. They fight till the bitter end. So the big lessons from this game: how did I reach 2,000 ELO in 7 months approximately? And how can you do the same if you're very motivated? First of all, you must learn your openings. I personally specialized in the Queen's Gambit for white, like this, as black to reach 2,000 against 1d5, or 1d4. I specialized in the Nimzo Indian with knight c3, bishop b4, as well as the Queen's Gambit declined with knight f3 and then d5. And specifically, if white goes for the Catalan, I like the plan with bishop b4 check and then a5. I win a lot of games with that line. And if white goes knight c3 instead, I played the Rogozin with bishop b4. The exact moves aren't that important, but the point is I'm specializing in certain lines. And finally, against 1e4, as black, I typically go for the Berlin defense with bishop b5 and then knight to f6 against the Roy Lopez. That was my bread and butter to hit 2,000 ELO. So the first thing you must do is you must master your openings, especially the ideas behind the openings. Second of all, you got to play a lot of games and analyze those games afterwards to figure out where you went wrong. So the next time you get that position or that similar idea or similar game, you know where you went wrong last time and exactly how to fix it. And trust me, if you're less than 2,000 ELO, you're making like so many mistakes during your game, so many mistakes, so many inaccuracies. You simply have to use the engine to figure out where you went wrong, because there are so many times you're playing wrong moves or suboptimal moves where you don't even know they're wrong. You don't even know they're not the best. So you have to use the engine to study your games. The third thing, you have to learn the right mental thought process during the game. And personally, I love the attack or develop thought process, which is if you can attack, attack. If you can't attack, or there's no good way to attack, develop. Bring out more pieces, castle, and so on. Also, the CCTO, checks, captures, threats, optimizations, that is super useful in more tactical positions where things are happening very fast. For example, in like, what's a good example of a tactical position? What would be a good example of that? I don't know. If you're playing the Danish Gambit as white, for example, Danish Gambit being c3, d takes, bishop c4, takes. Here, there's so much happening that this would be a good time for the CCTO method as an example. You also have to do blunder checks before you make a move, whether it's, let's say, d4 or whatever. Let's use this. Yeah. Here's a better example. Let's say you're playing here and the opponent plays knight d4. Before you take this free pawn, you want to do a blunder check. Does this move lose on the spot? Is there any way black can punish me? And it turns out, yes, there is. If you take the pawn, it's a well-known trap. Black goes queen g5, targeting g2, targeting the knight, targeting the bishop via the skewer, and white's entire game collapses on the spot. So before you make a move, like say, knight takes e5, you have to do a blunder check to make sure that it cannot backfire. And finally, you have to consider the opponent's threat. For example, with knight d4 here, what is the opponent's threat? He's threatening the bishop on b5. You don't want to lose it. Therefore, no matter what you do, you must do something to preserve the bishop. And the best move here, in case you're curious, is simply capturing the knight like this and then castling. And finally, the fourth and final thing I did to reach 2,000 ELO was studying tactical puzzles. Now, I'm a bit lazy with this. I did not study enough tactics, but studying tactics was certainly a big part of how I reached 2,000 ELO, as tactics are the main way chess games are won and lost, even at the GM level, but certainly below 2,000 ELO. So, as you saw in this game between me and my opponent here, I actually missed I had three major tactical mistakes. First of all, right here, I should have captured on f6. I did not. I should have seen I can take, if black takes back with the queen, I take on d5 and I win. I should have seen that. I didn't. I corrected it on the next move with taking here, and I saw the right idea. That was the first mistake. The second mistake I made is in this position, I took on d5, and that was not the way to go. Instead, e3 was the best move. I take on d5, and if black found the idea of taking and then long castling, black would have been better. And finally, the third mistake I made in this game, tactically at least, was when black played the move. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? No. Before. Here, rook b8. I should have asked myself, what is my opponent's threat? The threat is a5, attacking b4. I should have gone, say, I don't know, king to c2 or a2 or something. But I didn't. And black went a5. So even in this game that I won, I made 3 separate tactical mistakes, and they were not complicated. They were literally like 1 or 2 or 3 move combinations. So you must study tactics to improve. I recommend either Chess.com or Lead Chess or Chess Tempo. And if you're really serious, you can use Chess Books or even CT Art 4.0, a fantastic program. There are a lot of options. The important thing, though, if you're improving, is just study some tactics. They're so important for improving your overall tactical vision and seeing more combinations and ideas. So that's everything I personally did to reach 2,000 ELO in 7 months, going from 1,100 to over 2,000 again in just 7 months on chess.com. This is my real chess handle. Look it up yourself if you do not believe me. It is all documented there on chess.com. So that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you found it helpful. And by the way, if you want to massively skyrocket your online rating, I have students in my free online community, school.com/chessmindset. I have students there who are literally gaining almost 200 ELO points in 12 days. Literally. It's all documented. It's even on the About page. There's that screenshot of the report of that. Just insane stuff. If you want results like that, go to my free community right there. I'll onboard you. I'll answer any questions you have, and I will help you to skyrocket your online rating as fast as you can. Trust me, I can help you. I've helped so many people already. I've done it myself. I can absolutely help you reach whatever online rating you have, whether it's 1,000 ELO, 1,500, 2,000, and so on. So head right there. I'll see you in the community. And as always, I wish you the best of luck in your chess improvement journey in 2025 and beyond. And I'll see you in the next video.